So thank you so much for having me. Also, I thought a lot about what I wanted to read tonight, and I started considering maybe new poems, and then I thought about how some of my new poems can get kind of dark, and um, there's a lot of darkness nowadays that we see, and uh, I don't know. I thought maybe it might be more fun to do things we don't have a lot of, like people watching or maybe going to a bar. And so if you'll do this with me, I thought maybe I could take all of you guys to come sit with me at the bar, and we could people watch, and I'll do some vignette poems. So how about we do some ambience now? Is that better? Okay. So I'm gonna give me just one more sec. Here. So now you'll have to forgive me because I can't hear you, but I think you're all on mute anyway. So I'll just have to deal with seeing your beautiful faces. But maybe, maybe you'll just come with me a little bit. So, regular. The waitress brings you drinks before you asks, forgets to bring you your tab, thinks she's doing you a favor. Scientists take notes. So the people at the fire call themselves scientists, throw napkins and quarters and dice into the fire, but don't write anything down. Your drink is quieter than the man at the end of the bar, even though its mouth is bigger. Roughly, you may be in a bar, but there is no real place to be because the characters are always floating, a magic of perspectives bumping around the fire, under continual revision, echoes of the stories they've remembered. Two sets of eyes flash at each other, and with a blink, she understands something new, something he never said. There are those moments where something moves you, or you're lucky enough, or something where you can end up in a different environment, and you realize now you're being told a different story of yourself, and you no longer, like you get to, like it's the environment and who you see yourself as are a lot more linked. She's listing something, eyes at the ceiling, body stiff, but no one is listening. She stops talking, looks down and away from the group of men, dusts nothing from her knee. Did you really smell like a whore when you went to work today, he said. And then she just walked away, didn't respond. That guy, he could have been so charming. A human being can become a city, a work of art, an artifact of discourse, but only if you participate without your father's dictionary. I don't want my professor to be a real person, he said. I want a god. Last night, this lady got to the I'm so drunk I'm going to inventory my purse for you stage of the evening. All four of them are in Carhartts. Hands in their pockets outside the bar, leaning back like it's cold, like there are fish under the ice somewhere. Bottles tip at 30-degree grade and hands push the air. Quote, no, it's just 10 years of knowing a thing, he says. It's the season, he says, and points at a hoodie. The hoodie chuckles, lifts his beer. Quote, I tried to tell her that it was not a date. It was just an evening, he says, but she insisted it was a date. That's so judgmental, his friend says. He continues, so she says, let's go to a football game, and I take her, and she gets bored. Rude, the friend says, but did you have sex with her after? Her ring finger hasn't gone back to normal yet. Still looks like a geisha foot unwrapped. A squeezing in the open air, holds itself despite its emptiness. They've been together for forever, at least like a year. You can tell because he closes his eyes when he explains a thing and shaking his head. And then she says, I'm just saying. You don't hear her say it, but you can tell by the way her eyebrows come up, the way she looks at the ceiling, the way her throat is stretched, long, chin lifted, the palm of her foot on the fire pit, how he kisses her afterwards and she wiggles her knee, smiles. So I started writing these poems really sincerely, just listening to everyone sitting around me at the fire. And I did this a lot. And it was mostly an exercise in learning how to just watch what the body does and how that tells a story. So, and how the environment of everyone else around affects people. Let's continue, shall we? Mr. Long Jersey in ripped jeans arrives with a flute of champagne and passes it to the pretty lady beside him. She's wearing a blanket as a jacket. He orders a drink that comes in 3 bowls. I run my pen down the middle of my journal the way you used to when you would write at the bar. Don't skip ahead, you'll lose something. The drunk woman trailing bits of herself behind a stumble, first a receipt, then a jacket, a pair of smokes, a book, her phone, her underwear. Young dude with a cigar checks his phone next to a woman completely uninterested in him. She wags her head from side to side, mouths the words to the song playing above us. This one's called If I See One More Man Grab a Woman's Ass Tonight. The Marine is worried about his mindfulness habits, asking about David Foster Wallace and telling me stories about the time he got kicked in the face and will I go out with him on a date? Depends, I say. On what, he says. They change names constantly and parrot the arguments of every ancestor before them. She keeps acting like her mother. It's easier to travel by water than land. Easier to be invaded that way too, though. This is called It's Thanksgiving Weekend and She's Talking to Her Dad. Dandelion thrasher, rip-necked hoodie donned, she dabs her face with the point of a napkin at the fancy table under low light. Picks up a glass of wine in mid-conversation, lowers her head and nods while the old man shrugs. Something needs to be done. Did he break up with his wife, she says? It wafts above the din and she brings another hand to her face like she's spilled spaghetti on the tablecloth. Wow, he's one of those people, she says, and takes another bite. I don't know if it comes across in this poem, but my favorite part is the fact that she's wearing like these clothes that look like she should be at like a dive bar, but she's sitting at this like fancy bar and like talking to her dad like this upper class person, but she like looks. I live in Portland, right? So it was just a wild moment. I was like, what is she doing? Okay. Fire. He said, let's play a game, and grabbed a tiny stone from inside the gas fire pit. So she leapt in with her fingers and grabbed one from the blue center. Holy fuck, he said, eyes wide. Okay, quote. So I'm getting a pap smear and she's down there, she says. And she's making small talk, right? Starts asking me where I work and I tell her and she's like, oh, I love the soup there. And so I'm squeezing my thighs together, asking if we're done, but she keeps asking about the menu. So I tell her I'm in management and I'm happy to hear the feedback. And she's still staring, my vagina 4 inches from her face like a TV, like a snifter, she says. The people behind me don't make any sense. I can't tell who's saying what or why everyone is agreeing to terrible nonsense, but they do. Somewhere, there is a world at their table, and the math is just different there. Quote, I told her I really, really love you, but I also want to fuck other people, she says. She's very controlling, the friends say. You don't get to tell people who they can fuck, right? She says. I'm really in love with her, but still, I'm also in love with JD. I want to marry her one day. Me too, he says. I want to touch her butt. She's so beautiful. 2 guys talk to me about connection. Quote, I don't really believe in horoscopes, but mine said I would meet the love of my life from somewhere far, far away, and I'm from Philly, and we just met online, and now we are on a date in Portland. And the shoulders of the other guy rise and fall, and he closes his tab out but still holds hands with the guy who continues. But I really don't believe in horoscopes or palm reading. This is called The Kitchen Kids Tell Each Other About That One Boss. He was so good, but he was an alcoholic, had a disease, and he couldn't accept that something was wrong with him. He couldn't hold down a job and drink as much as we do. He couldn't stop. So one of the fun things about doing this is that it's just like a little set of just sort of snapshot pictures. And I'm not sure if it's coming across, but I do hope that it's easy to flip between these different vignettes and kind of see parts of all of ourselves in all of these people, even though they're just real snapshots. I've got a few more for you, if you'll have me. Her face won't budge, shoulders slumped over an underfed belly. She shrugs and looks at the fire, takes a drag of his cigarette and puts her face in her hand like a plate. She's saying no, saying how bored she is. So he turns to the stranger beside him, asks about his jacket. While she's gone, he checks his Facebook for new updates from his old girlfriend, a Rainier beside a glass of wine. It was never going to work. This is called Work Party at the Local Bar. 3 women coddle their knees like baskets of eggs, hips touching. They treat the bench like a teeter-totter against every invisible giant. Their eyes track over to a tall young blonde that walks towards them, leans a hip in the open air, stops to ask a question, and they pucker up to her, nod in unison, touch their faces, watch her walk away. This one was really fun to watch. This happened. Okay, so the accent says to the woman with short teeth, 6 years, cuddles the rim of his tiny glass at the bar, taps his knee against hers, rubs the rim of the glass and looks up at her eyes, purses his lips and nods. 6 years, he says, 6 years. She rubs his arm. You totally walked out, he says. So fun to listen to. I was like, fuck. Okay, now this is awful, right? Now I'm just one of those people. Good thing it's quarantine. I'm saving people. Okay. I have the urge to ask you out here and pretend to have a worse date than the one happening right next to me, but I am not sure that I could inventory my exes in every single one of my sexual encounters with the same kind of oblivious flair. They both lean in to look at her phone, the world in her palm, the conversation driver, a show of pictures, opportunity. Wait, she says, and he looks away while she thumbs the device. It's here somewhere, she mumbles. It's here. She's in a white sweater, cowl neck, pilling with too many washes. 4 black pins holding back one side of her white hair. He smokes in a black t-shirt with a full sleeve tattoo, has taken out his gauged earrings for tonight, but his hair is still unwashed. She's missing his attempts to bring up a new topic, so he pinches the chin of his half-grown beard to look introspective. Sometimes you just want company. Couple more. This is called Fire. The candle looked like the Colosseum, a single gladiator commanding the room at its center. Quote, I've been cleaning my room, he says, and I keep finding $100 bills from when I was drunk and stashed bills somewhere. Tonight, I'm going to turn the heat up real high so I can wake up with that Arizona feeling in my throat. So, I have one more poem on paper, and then I just want to say some thank yous before I share that one, if that's all right. So first of all, thank you so much to Steve and Ben, who are just like some of the most fucking amazing people I think I've ever met. And like this whole community is fantastic. And I got to say, it was like one of the highlights of that tour that I was on. One of the best moments of my life was coming down and visiting you guys. Also, I want to thank my friend Jeremy, who is doing a bunch of the sound tonight to make sure that it all worked, and did the fretting to make sure that we could do something fun and bring you guys to a bar and hang out. And then, oh, yes, like Ben said, if you liked any of my poems, I do have 2 books. They're put out by University of Hell. Don't do it for me, do it for University of Hell. Like, Greg is such a great editor, and he brings on people and really tries to bring forward voices. So even if it just means going to U of Hell and looking at the other voices there, you might like them if that's a kind of person who took a big risk on me. So from there, I'll give you guys back the show. Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. To stop sharing there.
That's the thing, is you're going to want to be able to respond, but it's a different
so system. I can't hear, yeah.
So you can even switch it just to your normal laptop.
Did you say there was one more, or?
That was the one more. Do you want one more?
I mean, obviously, but
I see some people wait.
I
can do it if you want one more. I have one. It's
totally.
I would love to do one. Are you okay? Okay. All right. So here we go. I have to pull this down now because there's an echo. So okay. You can fix it. Let's just do this. Okay. So how falling in love is like moving into a new house. Totally sucks to do alone. For those of us who do it in pairs, one person usually has more junk than the other one does. And when both people have a lot of junk, you need the help of some really good friends. You are usually more excited about these moves than your friends are, who are hoping that this is the last time they're going to have to help you move your heavy shit from one place to another. Good thing love goes well with pizza and beer. When you're in love, it never really feels like it's yours at first. At first, it always feels like it's somebody else's. Is this the kitchen or the bedroom? Do we do our laundry here or entertain ourselves? And then new undiscovered corners of the house seem fun and interesting, even if these were the same things you used to hate about other people's houses. See, sometimes you find that you have only moved into a different version of the place that you just left. And no matter how hard you try to make it work, some places just aren't for you. Or your roommate who decides to move on because they had unrealistic expectations of the house, or hated yard work, or couldn't stop seeing themselves in the houses down the street. Regardless, you may then find yourself trying to convince someone new to move into this place that you just can't leave. Such people, they're the same types to travel long distances, just to peer into their own old windows, hoping that everything will be the same. Except nobody really lives there anymore. I don't recommend this type of behavior, even if it leaves you destitute and homeless. In all probability, you will find somewhere new, and if you're lucky, may you stumble on your perfect home completely unplanned. Whether it's the one that you hardly see but learn to love all the same, or the one you grow to know in this constant, comfortable way with just enough light on the front porch and walls to write your names on. You'll learn to dance on the floor in your socks. Go find a hiding cellar. You'll spend just the right amount of time tidying up and sweeping out the closets and rearranging furniture. At night, old familiar sounds will comfort even your most worn places. You see, the process, it slows, but you will never really stop moving in. Thank you.